Snow fell in soft veils over the Montana wilderness, dusting pine boughs and cloaking the earth in silence. It was late autumn, November of 1881, and the air held the sharp bite of winter yet to come. In a clearing carved out of forest, a modest framework of logs stood partially built, its form rough but determined, like the woman hammering each board into place. Eleanor Sullivan straightened slowly, her hand pressed to the small of her back, a hammer still clenched in her other. Her breath rose in white puffs as she turned, sensing she was no longer alone. From the edge of the tree line, a man on horseback observed her. His voice came steady and low, tinged with a quiet patience shaped by years with animals and solitude. "Didn't expect to see anyone out here," he said, the brim of his hat shadowing his face. Looked like the place was empty. Eleanor squinted toward him, wary. "It's not. This is my land. If you're lost, turn around. There's nothing for you here." The stranger tipped his hat. "Name's Clayton Hartwell. Circle H Ranch is about 10 miles north. Just checking the borders." His gaze moved over the half-raised walls and the effort in her posture. "Didn't figure someone would be building out here, especially not alone." "I prefer it that way," Eleanor said flatly. Clayton dismounted with ease, leading his horse forward a few steps but keeping respectful distance. The frozen grass crunched beneath his boots. "No offense meant," he said, noting her guarded stance. "Just don't see many folks doing this kind of work, especially in your condition." She didn't flinch. "I didn't come here to be most folks." The hammer rose again, driving a nail with practiced precision. He watched her work, saw the steadiness in her hands, the strength it took to carry both a growing child and a dream on her back. If you're building all this by yourself, that takes more than strength. It takes grit. "I've got grit. What I don't have is time for kindness with strings." "No strings," he replied. "Just respect." She didn't answer, but her hand stilled on the wood. Her eyes searched his face. He wasn't young, but not yet old either. The fine lines at his temples spoke of loss more than age. His clothes were tidy, his posture dignified, but his hands bore the wear of ranch work. Something in him felt familiar, like someone who had lost something too. "I don't need anyone trying to fix me," she said finally, her voice quieter. "I wouldn't try," he said. "You don't look like someone broken. You look like someone rebuilding." Clayton mounted his horse again, pausing only to say, "If you ever need anything, Circle H isn't far." She didn't reply, only watched him disappear into forest. When the silence returned, she leaned her shoulder against the cool log wall and let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Inside her, the baby shifted, and she laid a hand across her belly. "That kind of man doesn't just pass by," she murmured, though she would never say aloud what stirred quietly in her chest. Something dangerously close to hope. 3 mornings later, with the sun still low over the frost-laced prairie, Eleanor stood with a heavy plank balanced awkwardly against her shoulder. The aches were constant now, her muscles tight with strain, her back sore, her steps slower. "You're pushing too hard," came a voice, deep and familiar. Her heart jumped. She turned to find Clayton at the edge of the trees, his bay gelding behind him, a bundle wrapped in a checkered cloth in his arms. "I didn't ask for company," she said, frowning. "No," he replied easily, "but I came anyway." He stepped forward and placed a bundle on a stump between them. "My mother sent this. Some tea for the nausea, and baby clothes. Said you refused them, but she sent them all the same." Eleanor looked at the bundle, but didn't move toward it. "You always do what your mother tells you?" Clayton smiled faintly. "Only when she knits." His gaze swept over the structure. "You've done more since I was here." "Alone?" She nodded once. He studied her hands, chapped and red, then her face, pale but set with stubborn resolve. And all of it while carrying the weight of 2. "I don't need praise." "No, but you deserve it." She crossed her arms tightly. "Why are you really here? Looking for a story to share at the next supper table? Something about the stubborn woman building in the woods." "No story," he said. "Just didn't like the idea of you out here carrying so much alone." Her expression hardened. "I'm not a cause to rescue." "I never said you were," he replied gently. "Some people help because they see strength, not weakness. That disarmed her more than she expected. The truth in his voice unsettled her. "You can leave the bundle there," she said at last. Clayton nodded, turned, and left without another word. Only when the forest swallowed him again did she walk to the stump and unfold the cloth. 3 tiny wool garments lay inside, soft yellow with careful stitches, and a small tin of tea scented faintly of ginger and mint. For the first time since she'd left everything behind, something inside her cracked. Not enough to break, but enough to breathe. A week passed. The wind grew sharper, threading through the gaps in the unfinished walls and howling across the open ground. Eleanor sat near a half-formed hearth, her hands raw, her breath misting in the frigid air. Beside her, Clayton stacked another log with quiet precision. They had spent the morning working side by side. No confessions, no posturing, just the sound of labor and the occasional laugh when a boy refused to cooperate. "You work harder than a man twice your size," he remarked, brushing sawdust from his coat. "I had to," she replied. Didn't have the luxury of waiting to be saved. He sat beside her, close enough to share warmth. She stared into the flickering light. "I was married," she said, the words clipped and dry. "In Boston. It was proper. Gloves, flowers, all of it. He left 6 months in. Said the child wasn't his." Clayton didn't interrupt. "I never told him it was. Didn't matter by then. The divorce papers never made it through. Still married, technically." Clayton gave a small nod, no judgment in his face. "It's not something I advertise," she added, voice low. "People already look at me like I'm broken. Towson's still married, and suddenly I'm not just inconvenient, I'm scandal. People judge what they don't understand." She glanced at him. "You haven't asked if I still love him." "I didn't have to," he answered. "If you did, you wouldn't be here." That landed with more weight than she expected. Her eyes stung. "What about you?" she asked softly. "You don't seem the type who rides just to check fences." His gaze drifted to the snowy ridgeline. "Her name was Sarah. My wife. She loved horses. Fast ones. Took a gelding out one morning and didn't come back. Broke her neck in a fall." He paused. "That was 5 years ago." Eleanor didn't speak. The fire crackled between them. "I've been riding ever since. Mending fences. Keeping busy. Not much more." A silence settled over them again, this one different, not awkward, but shared. Eleanor's voice was quieter when she spoke next. "You didn't come to rescue me, did you?" "No," he said. "I came because I saw someone building something worth standing beside." The first snow had arrived in silence, curling between the evergreens like a secret. It was late November of 1881, and the Montana wilderness had begun surrendering to winter. In a modest clearing, the half-finished shell of a cabin stood against the biting wind, its frame stubborn, held together by rough timbers and sheer will. Inside the clearing, a woman worked, steadily, silently, raising a future log by log. Eleanor Sullivan didn't pause when she heard the soft crunch of hooves behind her. She knew the rhythm wasn't wildlife. It was too deliberate, too slow. She turned, straightening with effort, one hand pressed against her aching lower back, the other gripping her hammer. A man sat astride a horse at the edge of the trees, watching her with quiet curiosity. "I thought this place had been abandoned," he said, his voice calm, worn smooth by years of solitude. "It's not," she replied. "So, if you're looking for somewhere else to be, keep riding. There's nothing for you here." He tipped his hat slightly. "Didn't mean to intrude. Name's Clayton Hartwell. My family runs a Circle H ranch about 10 miles north. Just checking the property lines." Her eyes narrowed, then checked them elsewhere. He didn't budge. "Didn't expect to find someone building out here, especially not alone. I prefer it that way." Clayton dismounted, but stayed beside his horse, respectful of the space she clearly guarded. "No judgment," he said. "Just not something you see every day." Her hammer struck, would again with precision. "I didn't come here to be seen." "I can respect that." She didn't look at him again until he said, "Carrying a child and building a home from scratch. That's no small thing. I'm not interested in sympathy." Wasn't offering any, just respect. She paused then, just for a breath. And when she looked at him again, she didn't see mockery. His face was calm, lined with hardship and honesty. His hands were the kind that belonged to someone who knew work. And there was something in his eyes, loss, maybe, or something close to it. "I've had enough of people trying to fix what they don't understand," she said. "I'm not here to fix anything," he replied softly. "Some things don't need fixing, just someone who sees them." He turned and rode away without asking her name. 3 days later, as morning frost clung to grass like glass threads, Eleanor felt a sharp pull low in her side as she hefted a plank onto her shoulder. She staggered slightly under the weight and pain. "You're working too hard," came a voice from behind her. She spun, startled. Clayton was there again, standing just beyond the clearing. His coat was dusted with snow, and he held a bundle wrapped in cloth. "I didn't ask you to come." "No," he said, "but I came anyway." He stepped forward and gently placed a bundle on a tree stump. "Tea, some baby clothes. My mother knitted them. She figured you'd pretend you didn't need them." She stared at the package but didn't move. Her arms crossed, jaw set. "Why do you keep coming back?" "Because you're out here, doing everything alone when you don't have to be." "I'm not a burden." "Didn't say you were." She was quiet for a long moment before saying, "People help because they think you're weak." "Not always," he said. "Sometimes they help because they see strength they can't ignore." Her guard faltered just slightly. "You can leave it there." He did, then left the way he'd come. When he was gone, she unfolded the bundle. 3 tiny yellow garments, hand-stitched with care, and a tin of tea that smelled faintly of ginger. She stood for a long time, holding the smallest shirt in her hand, while the wind whispered through the trees and the baby stirred within her. Winter crept in slowly, quiet and steady. Eleanor worked each day with hands red from the cold, and on more days than not, Clayton returned, not with grand gestures, but with tools, lumber, and wordless company. They found a rhythm together, working in sync without needing to speak it aloud. When boards didn't fit, they laughed. When silence stretched long, it didn't feel empty. One evening, with the sky turned lavender and gold, they sat on the unfinished porch. She shivered slightly beneath her shawl. Clayton offered his coat. She refused, but after a pause murmured, "It's easier to be alone. Safer, maybe, but maybe it's just lonelier." He looked at her. "Maybe it is." The next frost brought whispers. In Willowbrook, tongues wagged over the woman in the woods and the rancher who visited too often. Eleanor noticed a change. Smiles turned polite and strained. The Kowalskis asked fewer questions. The general store clerk wouldn't meet her gaze. Then one morning, a polished carriage arrived. The woman who stepped down wore elegance like armor. Her name, Victoria Morrison, carried weight. "Miss Sullivan," she began, her voice crisp, her eyes hard. "You may know who I am." Eleanor stood tall, hand resting over her growing belly. "I do." "Then I'll be brief. This relationship, if one can call it that, between you and Mr. Hartwell must stop. There is no relationship. Then end the association. He visits you. People talk. His reputation is being tarnished because of you. I didn't ask him to come. But you didn't turn him away either, did you?" Eleanor's voice stayed calm. "He's free to do as he pleases. I've never asked for his name or his future." "No," Victoria said, "just his time, his attention. And now, I must watch as the man I meant to marry hesitates, because you haunt him." Eleanor's fists clenched. "I built this cabin myself. I carry a child alone. I've taken nothing that wasn't offered freely." "Your presence is enough?" Victoria snapped. "Sell the land. Leave. Disappear. Before you ruin the only good man left in this town." When Victoria rode away, Eleanor stood motionless. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. But later, as she swept the porch and the wind picked up again, her breath came shorter. Her hands trembled. "Am I destroying the only person who ever saw me?" she whispered. The next snowfall came hard and cold. Days passed. Doubt weighed heavier than snow. When Clayton finally returned, she was ready for anger, for judgment, but he brought neither. "I told my father," he said. The engagement's off. She froze. You shouldn't have. I had to, he said, because I won't build a life out of fear or lies. You, this place, that child, you're real, and I'm not walking away. Tears stung her eyes. I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you sooner. He waited. I'm not divorced, she said. Not legally. Charles left me before I could even explain. I thought he'd file the papers. He didn't. I never went back. I couldn't. Clayton's expression didn't change. He stepped closer and took her hands. You think that changes anything? I have no name to give you. No clear future. Just survival. You gave me the truth, he said. That's more than I've ever had. I'm not afraid of the past. I just want to be part of what comes next. Her heart broke open, not from pain, but from the way his words filled the cracks. Later, as the moon rose silver over the quiet woods, and the cabin stood against the cold like a heartbeat refusing to still, Eleanor sat near the cradle she'd carved with her own aching hands. Clayton stood nearby, silent but sure, a presence that no longer asked for permission. You shouldn't have come back, she whispered. I never really left, he said. Their eyes met, not to rewrite the world, but to choose one small, brave corner of it where love, even in fragments, could grow. I'm not trying to change the past, he said quietly. I just want to write something that finally feels honest. She stood up, so suddenly the chair scraped across the floor. One hand pressed against her lower back as her belly shifted. Life inside her pushing against her ribs like it sensed a storm rising in her voice. You think love fixes this, she shot back. It doesn't. Love doesn't stop whispers. It doesn't untangle marriage contracts or buy land, or raise babies, or make a town forget who I am. I don't give a damn about the town, he said, calm but firm. Well, you should, she snapped, voice trembling. Because that town will care about you. The golden boy from Circle H, falling for a woman with a baby not born of him, and a reputation no one will let die. Clayton's jaw clenched, but he didn't raise his voice. He's not just anyone's, he said. He's yours. That makes him better than most men I've ever known. Eleanor felt the air leave her lungs like she'd been punched. She turned away, hand bracing against a window frame, her fingers trembling. I've spent months lying awake wondering if I had enough of me to do this alone, she whispered. And now that someone wants to carry some of the weight, all I feel is terror. Clayton stepped closer, quietly closing the space between them. His warmth didn't touch her skin, but it reached her all the same. Why are you afraid? He asked gently. Because I've been wrong before, she said, her voice barely a sound. I believed a man who promised things that crumbled, trusted someone to stay, and he left without asking if the child was even his. You think I'll walk away too? She didn't answer. He placed his hand softly on her shoulder. I know what it is to lose, he said, to have the ground yanked from beneath your feet. My wife, she died one morning like any other. She laughed at how bitter my coffee was. A minute later, she fell. She never woke up. Eleanor turned, eyes wide and full of sorrow. I buried her beneath a cottonwood tree, he said. And every day since, I've lived like the world owed me nothing. I stopped believing in fate, in joy, in anything, really, until I saw you, hammering nails like they'd wronged you. A shaky laugh escaped her throat, half sob, half disbelief. You're not some woman I stumbled on, he continued. You're the fire I didn't know I was missing. And I don't want to lose you. Not to laws I didn't write, or to people too scared to build something real. She lifted her hands, fingers brushing his wrists but not pushing away. I don't know how to let someone in, she whispered. I built so many walls, I forgot where the door is. He leaned his forehead to hers, his voice cracking. Then let me help you find it. The world quieted around them, just snow beyond the windows, warmth within, and a thin thread of hope stretching between them. I already lost once, Clayton whispered. I'm not losing again. Not now. Not when I found something worth holding on to. Eleanor closed her eyes, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. By late afternoon, the sky had turned a bruised gray. Eleanor clutched the porch railing as wind stirred the pines into whispers. Her child twisted inside her like it knew something was coming. Snow began to fall, thick, relentless. Inside, she lit every lamp, boiled water, spread blankets. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. And then pain. Sudden, sharp, tearing through her like flame. "Not now," she gasped. "Not like this." Miles away, Clayton tightened the saddle on his horse. Something in the sky, in the silence, had told him she needed him. Instinct shouted louder than sense. He rode straight into the whiteout. The wind howled, visibility vanished. His horse stumbled on a drift, throwing him into an icy creek. Water stole the air from his lungs. His shoulder screamed in pain. He lay there, snow falling on his face. "She needs me," he groaned. He crawled from the water. The horse was gone. So he walked, through knee-high snow and wind that clawed at his coat, step by step. At the cabin, Eleanor fought, screaming, bleeding, her body a battlefield. She cried for strength, for mercy, for her father. The storm raged, but then a cry, new, fierce, beautiful, a baby, a son. Tears poured down her cheeks as she cradled him, kissed his tiny face. "You're safe?" she whispered, rocking him. "Even if it's just me." Then a knock, soft, then louder. She froze. The door creaked open. Clayton, drenched, bleeding, pale. "Clayton!" she gasped. He stumbled inside, collapsed near the fire, steam rising from his coat. His eyes locked on the child. No words. He reached out, brushing the baby's fist. "Looks like you've already built something, Miss Sullivan," he murmured. "Mind if I join you?" She could have said no. Should have, maybe. Instead, she placed the baby in his arms. "Only if you're sure," she whispered. "I've never been more sure." Outside, snow kept falling. Inside, something new began. Spring did not arrive with blossoms, but with soft ground beneath her boots. Eleanor stepped into the mud, her son tucked against her chest. Birds sang again. The pines smelled of sun. Inside, the fire still burned, but the warmth now came from laughter. Clayton drove the first post for the new kitchen. "This soil's ready," he said. "Or maybe it knows we've got plans," she smiled. "We need more room. That boy's growing fast." They named him Thomas. Nothing fancy, just steady true. That afternoon, Eleanor sat at the table, pen in hand, writing her final letter to a Boston law firm. Divorce from Charles Whitmore. Her fingers trembled as she sealed the envelope. Clayton came in, sawdust on his sleeves. "You did it." She nodded. "Last ghost sent away." He kissed her forehead. "I'm proud of you." No rings. No preacher. Just a stew shared with the Kowalskis and a handful of neighbors. Clayton strung lanterns. Eleanor stirred the pot. When the sky turned lavender, he stood and took her hand. "She's the strongest person I've ever met," he said. "I thought I was coming to help her, but she helped me." Eleanor smiled. No vows, just roots. A week later, she asked what he was building. He told her to wait. That evening, she saw it, a door with a handle shaped from a bent horseshoe. "Found it by the pasture," he said. "Thought it was scrap, but it just needed shaping." She traced it with her fingers, like some people. He nodded. Broken things can still carry weight, if they're strong enough. The wildflowers came. Thomas laughed for the first time. One golden evening, Eleanor sat at her desk, her father's old stationery beneath her hand. She wrote, "Dear P, you once said home was a feeling, not a place. I didn't believe you, but now I do. I built walls, roofs, chopped wood, fought storms. I did it for me and my son. But it took a cowboy with dusk in his eyes and a quiet heart to make it feel like home. We're not alone anymore. Love, Eleanor." She folded the letter and tucked it in her father's old tin mailbox. Behind her, Clayton hammered fence posts. Their boy laughed in her arms. The wind carried the scent of pine and promise. Spring had come, and with it, everything she never dared hope for.